This is the Friday edition of Severe Thunderstorm Outlooks. Once again, it needs to be stressed there are many days of severe weather possibilities today, tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, all looking very active. Tornadoes are likely on all of these days. Depending on where you live, it could be a major threat, large hail as well. So pay attention to this video. I'm meteorologist Ted Keller. I'll dive into the details. We had tornado reports yesterday, largely where the SPC outlined it. A handful of them north of Omaha and in around the Des Moines area, southern Iowa. Then we had some associated with the linear storms, a few of which were able to produce some tornadoes. These are land spouts. I actually almost got those, but I ditched that in favor of this cell right here. I'll show you what happened in Oklahoma. This is the Enid Air Force Base hit, and this is the large supercell that formed and moved just about due east, north of Ponca City there. And I was chasing that storm, and I was near Newkirk, and I saw this is the mothership, as so to speak. So that's the curvature back, and that's what's left of the wall cloud about 7:30. Never did see a tornado touchdown, but I was a little bit late to the game on that one, but that does happen in storm chasing. So let's focus on today. That entire thing congealed into a line of storms, which now runs from the Boot Heel all the way down into southeast Oklahoma and central Arkansas. And that is going to be part of what defines today's outlook. Let's get to that. So we do have, and this is a broad brush, I'll focus in a minute here, but I did want to show you there's a level 1 area out here in Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan, but certainly this catches your attention down here. So let's zoom in on that. So we have a level 3 out of 5 for southeast Oklahoma, northeast Texas, maybe a little bit of Arkansas, Louisiana, with a large area of 2, basically out ahead of this line. Remember, it was about right there. Actually, it was about right there. And so basically the air here will be unperturbed by this. This will eventually stall. And so we'll see, again, the highest probability of any type of severe weather in that level 3 area out of 5. As far as tornado risk, a 5% chance in a swath from southeast Oklahoma, northeast parts of Texas, almost the Dallas area, Tyler, Texas, through southern Arkansas, all the way over to Jackson, Mississippi by later on. In terms of intensity, this is an intensity 1, so it's heavily favored EF0 and EF1 scale with maybe a perceivable chance of an EF2 in that area. And the interpretation here is especially when this stuff is ongoing. In other words, so if it's shifted to the left or to the west of the outlook, this implies that it's earlier on in the period. Remember, all these outlooks are 24-hour outlooks, essentially. If I'm using the morning one, like I am, this means that this intensity goes through tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. So just keep that in mind. So in other words, some of this activity out here in this 5% risk could be very, very late tonight. If we look at Nadocast, it does paint a picture very similar to that with little pockets of 5% risk from northeast Texas on over to just south of Jackson, Mississippi. There is also a pretty good hail risk with this, 30% chance of severe hail, basically in that tornado initiation area later on. So we have the squall line remnants, plus we have an attempt to return to some moist, unstable air here. Low-level winds, not great. But again, the micro changes could occur. This is not expected to be a windbag, so to speak. In other words, a squall line that just produces massive wind damage. Excuse me, that's not real common this time of year anyway, but basically it's the same outlined area. As far as CSU's outlook for today is concerned, they put the tornado maximum right along the intersection there of Arkansas, Texas, Louisiana, that area. It's a 5% risk. And they are painting a hail picture very similar to what SPC's outlook is. And again, kind of poo-pooing the wind just a little bit. So at the 500 millibar level, what's happening here is we have, again, what's defining the next several days of severe weather are two things. The fact that this low is cut off and is not allowing any kind of cold front to move meaningfully through the area. Then we have these little short waves, and we also have a larger scale concern here, and I'll get to that in a minute. Bulk shear today is going to be favorable in these areas outlined here, so if it's basically colored, any color really, but the purple is better, that just means that we have a shear profile. Bulk shear just means the shear from the surface up to a level right around 500 millibars roughly. And you need that so that supercells, when they grow, they don't collapse on themselves, and their updraft and downdraft structure is what determines that and enables them to last longer and, in theory, produce more severe weather. So if we zoom in on the Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana area here, this is Cape. I believe I grabbed 0Z. So this is 7 o'clock night. Look at, you can see the squall lines carved out a stable area here through Arkansas by then. And then we have this kind of return flow here right up to the Red River Valley, eastern parts of Texas as well. Here's some simulated radars. Again, this is 1 p.m., the continuation of what I just showed you at the beginning. And then that continues to sink southward. There's a couple of isolated supercell structures you can see by the snail trails, the updraft helicity, the rotation of the storms. That indicates possible supercells by 4. And then again by 7, again, maybe some activity right there along the intersection of all those states. So that could be a significant storm. And then even through 10 p.m., that the cluster continues there, with maybe some embedded tornadoes, some large hail with that, while the main surge continues on over into Alabama. So let's go to Saturday, day 2. And this is mostly a situation where we have overrunning. Basically, this is a hail and wind threat in this level 3 area. But there's a pretty substantial level 2, which does include parts of southwest Missouri. But I think we'd be in the cheap seats kind of watching that a little bit, as some of it might get into southwest Missouri, but the main focus is between, let's say, Oklahoma City and Tulsa, south of Wichita, and on into western Arkansas. Zoom on in on that, and you can see a little bit better what that level 3 is. Now, this is interesting, though. Notice this, and I'm going to wipe to this. This is the tornado threat for the exact same 24-hour period, and it's not even in the same place. So this tornado risk is basically suggesting there's some dry line activity and some activity later on. So there might be 2 parts to this. There's this part, and then later on in the afternoon and into the evening, even in the overnight hours, there's that part. If you look at the severe hail risk, pretty good. Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Fort Smith, Stillwater, those areas, Ponca City, Enid, have a large hail risk. And again, severe hail is 1 inch diameter or greater, but there's a lot of suggestion we could get some 2 inch diameter hail in the middle of this. I have not updated the significant hail overlay on this yet, but I will. And then the wind risk is about in that same area. If we look at CSU's tornado outlook, they put it in south central Oklahoma into northern Texas, with the hail threat in about the same spot and the wind spot displaced slightly over. On Saturday, the upper level wind fields are kind of, there's a little shortwave here. I think I grabbed these late in the day. So this is 0Z, I believe. So this has already overtaken this area here. So it's interesting to watch this. And so it's not the main wind energy yet, but it's subtle. So mesoscale features like where old boundaries are, things like that, are very important for that. And you've noticed the upper level winds are increasing here. That will play into Sunday for sure. So here's Sunday's outlook. This has been modified a little bit to include a lot more of Kansas, in particular western Kansas, but also extended along I-70 into Kansas City and parts of western Missouri, with the level 2 surrounding that, the level 1 all the way down pretty much to Mexico. We'll zoom in on the highest probabilities there, and I'll show you here. So there's Kansas City, Lawrence, Topeka's right in here, Manhattan, Salina is right there, Dodge City is back here. So it looks to me as if there's this long area of instability. It kind of looks like this, with winds backing back this way. And that looks interesting to me. I'm going to chase on Sunday. Right now, I would strongly preference this area here, but there's time to look at that and bite your fingernails over your decisions. Anyway, the CSU outlook does put the tornado risk at its highest, right in that yellow area. That's at 10% risk. Some of that does infringe upon the Ozarks. Again, remember, these are 24-hour outlooks, so they're meant to cover the whole period from Sunday morning to Monday morning. Hail is highlighted right around Wichita with a wind risk. Not too impressive, but certainly there. So if we look at Sunday's upper level flow, this is interesting to me because we have strong winds infringing upon this entire maximum outlook area here. We have the left exit region right here, which is a strong uplift favored area here, especially if we can focus that a little bit more. And so this area, if we can get the instability to back into here, like I think will happen, is a pretty favored area. Also notice there's diffluence. So if you just look at this entire thing, those 2 arrows kind of define kind of a spreading out. That helps lift the air. and increases in stability, generally speaking. Now, Mondays has changed quite a bit. Let's turn the page one more day here. From 2 days ago, this risk area was down here, and then it moved north substantially yesterday. Now it's all the way into Wisconsin. This is a 30% chance of any severe weather within a 25-mile circle. That's pretty significant for something that is many days away. So again, the interpretation here is this all starts over again during the afternoon on Monday, right around there, and then kind of spreads this way. What mode this will take, this forecast does not attempt to do that. It doesn't attempt to discriminate between severe weather along a line or discrete supercells or tornadoes or anything. It's just saying any of it. But again, this many days out, 30% risk, pretty significant. CSU has a high probability, 45% of severe weather with a hatched area indicating significant severe in about that same region. Do I even see a 60%? I sure do. They're in southern parts of Illinois. That suggests a very active Boeing segment or squall line to me. And again, that coincides fairly well with the SPC's outlook. It just doesn't, they don't back it into Arkansas quite as much as this outlook does. Monday's jet stream, I grabbed this one's a little early. I've been grabbing the 0Z. Here's the 18Z because I think it's going to be an earlier event. We have a very strong shortwave with very favorable upper level winds moving in. This is really kind of a squall line setup, if you ask me. If any instability can get up here, that would be significant, and anything that's tailing along here might be more significant than indicated here, but it's many days out. And then on Tuesday, even though the SPC hasn't pulled the trigger on anything there is a kind of a sagging southward, if you will, of the energy and the instability as indicated. And the jet stream, there's a ridge in South Texas, big high, but there's still very active energy here. So there's some possibilities. There's even energy still hanging back here that could come into play by Thursday in Texas. So it is an active period. Here is, again, NIU summing up the next 7 days and doing it really, really well. High probability of supercell, as high as the chart will allow, 30%. Then that's the first week. Then the first week of May, 1st through the 7th, it backs off into the high plains a little bit. Not the high plains, the upper elevation areas of Texas and Oklahoma, but not the northern plains. Stabilizing influences up here are clear. There's a very sharp dividing line there. And then the week after that, May 8th through the 14th, it creeps northward once again, this area under the gun. Thanks for watching today's edition of Severe Thunderstorm Outlooks. This is published every day after the morning Storm Prediction Center update. Also, remember to check that site off on day one because they update it fairly frequently. If you like this video, please like it. Also, you can subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.